everyone, bright morning! So today, we are going to compare and contrast two countries. One is developed and one is developing. We have Germany and Afghanistan. So we are going to compare the both countries in terms of the effects of globalization towards their economy, culture, peace, and of course, governance. So where do you think is the developed and the developing country between the two? Let's find out! So now let's see what is the developed and developing country between the two. So Germany is considered the developed country. Why? It is because of its economic strength and trade. It is also the Europe's largest manufacturing economy and a global leader in areas like automobile. It is also because of the infrastructures that we can see in the country. And there is also a human capital, social, and there is also a political stability and of course a high living standards. So when we go to Germany, we can see or we can say by just looking at its surrounding that it is a developed country because it is surrounded by a lot of infrastructure and the people living there is living a good life so they can get the essentials and the needs that they want in their everyday life. While the Afghanistan is the one that is considered a developing country. Do you know why? It is due to its lack of infrastructure. There is also corruption in the country. There is an insecurity and weak governance. There is a high poverty rate, limited access to essentials and service. So that's why it is a developing country because it cannot sustain the needs of the people living in their country. So there are a lot of people suffering. As we go to that country, we can see a lot of big infrastructure, but the people who are living in streets because of poverty, that's why it is a developing country. But now, let us know how globalization affects these countries or both these countries in terms of their governance, economy, culture, as well as peace. Are you ready? Let's dive in!
Good day, my name is Rhea Diayat, and now let's know how globalization affects the developed and developing country in terms of economy. So first, let's discuss the developed country, which is the Germany. Germany is the largest in Europe and the fourth largest country worldwide in terms of economy. Germany is the third largest exporter, and their major exports are automobiles, chemicals, machinery, and pharmaceuticals. Their economic structure came from 70% of their gross domestic product or the GDP from their services like finance, healthcare, education, and logistics. 27% of their GDP came from industry or manufacturing like cars, chemicals, electrical equipment, and machinery. And the 1% of their GDP came from agriculture. When we say gross domestic product or GDP, it is a total monetary value of a final goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific period of time, usually a year or a quarter. So now let's proceed to the effects of globalization in Germany in terms of economy. First is the boost of the GDP growth. According to study by Bertelsmann or Stiftung, globalization increased Germany's real GDP by about $100 billion annually between 1990 to 2011. Their openness, like trade and investments, contributed roughly 0.3 percentage points per year on average to Germany's per capita GDP growth between 1990 to 2018. And next is export-oriented industries and high trade dependent. A large chunk of Germany's economy relies on exports. In 2019, about 28% of jobs and 31% of gross value added dependent directly or indirectly on exports. Also, trade openness is very high. The total number of exports plus exports is about 88% of German GDP, far above the OECD average, which is 59%. Next is income gains from International Division of Labor. Simulation studies suggest real incomes in Germany are 38% higher than if Germany were economically closed, thanks to trade and specialization. Industries such as mechanical engineering, automotive, chemicals, pharmaceuticals are especially advanced because they earn a large portion of revenue abroad. Globalization is a major source of growth and productivity for Germany, but also creates exposure to global shocks and intensifies competition. The right combination of pro-investment structural reforms, active labor policies, and strategic industrial or energy planning is required to keep the gains while managing risks. That will be all. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Before I proceed to the effects of globalization to Afghanistan's economy, let me first introduce myself. I am Rachel A. Albos. So globalization has significantly impacted Afghanistan's economy, presenting both opportunities and challenges. So first, let's discuss the positive effects of globalization. So first positive effects of globalization to Afghanistan's economy is increased trade and investment. So globalization can lead to more foreign direct investment, which helps in developing countries and infrastructure in Afghanistan. For example, international companies might invest in Afghanistan's mining sector, creating jobs and boosting economic growth. The second is technology transfer. Globalization facilitates the transfer of technology and knowledge, improving productivity and efficiently. So, for instance, the introduction of mobile technology has transformed communication and access to information in some urban centers. Third is competition and lower price. So, increased competition among firms can lead to lower prices and better quality products for consumers. So this means that Afghans can access a wider variety of goods at more affordable prices. So last positive effects of globalization to Afghanistan's economy is cultural exchange. So exposure to different cultures through globalization can broaden perspectives and foster creativity. So an example is the popularity of singing competitions like Afghan Star, so which is modeled after Western shows and allows young Afghans to showcase their talent. So now let's proceed to the negative effects of globalization to Afghanistan's economy. First, we have increased corruption. So globalization can create opportunities for corruptions as leaders and warlords may benefit from activities like the opium trade. So this corruption can undermine governance and hinder development efforts. Second is loss of traditional industries. So local industries may struggle to compete with cheaper imports, leading to job losses and economic disruption. So for example, traditional Afghan textile producers may find it difficult to compete with mass-produced clothing from other countries. Next is dependence on foreign aid. So reliance on international aid can make Afghanistan vulnerable to changes in foreign policy and funding priorities. So a reduction in aid can have a severe consequences for an Afghan economy. Next is security threats. So globalization can facilitate the movement of transnational extremists and terrorists, so posing security and challenges for Afghanistan. So this can further destabilize the country and hinder economic development. Last is digital divide. Many Afghans lack access to the internet and technology, creating a digital divide that excludes them from the benefits of globalization. So this divide is exacerbated by factors such as lack of electricity, illiteracy, and limited access to education. So in conclusion, globalization's impact on Afghanistan's economy is complex and multifaceted. While it offers opportunity for economic growth, technological advancements, and cultural exchange, it also possesses challenges related to corruption, security, and inequality. So addressing these challenges is crucial for Afghanistan to fully benefit from globalization.
Right morning everyone, I am Rovi Marian Arojado of BDL Ed HE-3A, and today I'm going to share to you on how globalization shapes Germany in terms of their governance. So Germany is a federal parliamentary republic, which means that leadership is chosen by people and decisions are made through democratic processes. Globalization has strengthened its governance by promoting transparency, accountability, and participation in decision-making. So a clear example of this is the Bundestag or German parliament, where elected official represents the voice of the people. Germany's active participation in international organizations also affect the influence of globalization. As a member of European Union, NATO, and the United Nations, Germany plays a key role in shaping global policies. For instance, it contributed significantly to the Paris Agreement on climate change, showing its commitment to renewable energy and sustainability. There are several positive effects of globalization on Germany's governance. This includes stronger cooperation in international law, the adoption of global best practices like strict data protection under GDPR, and a greater focus on human rights. So a good example of this is the Germany's decision to welcome thousands of refugees during the 2015 migration crisis, reflecting its responsibility to the global community. However, globalization also brings challenges. So Germany faces difficulties in managing migration and integrating refugees, in adjusting national laws to fit EU regulations, and in dealing with the risks of populism and nationalism in political groups like the AfD, which questions globalization and even the EU itself. Overall, Germany benefits greatly from globalization because it maintains a stable and strong governance system that is deeply connected to international frameworks. This makes Germany both influential in global decision-making and responsive to international challenges.
Bright morning everyone, my name is Mary Pauline Bibuli, and today I'm going to discuss the governance of Afghanistan. So the current governance of Afghanistan is controlled by the Taliban, who refer to the country as the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan, which means IEA. This system is a highly centralized, authoritarian structure based on the Taliban's strict interpretation of Sharia, which is the Islamic law. So we have here the key features of the governance. First, we have the supreme leadership. The highest authority is the supreme leader, which means he is not a visible public figure but issues decrees and provides the central direction for all governance, including political and religious matters. Think of him like an ultimate CEO and spiritual guide who sets the company's entire mission and all major policies from behind the scene. We have here the key number 2, which is the centralized control. So the power flows from the top leader and the leadership council, which is the Rabari Shura, a group of senior Taliban figures, down to the government ministries and provincial authorities. There is no elect parliament or established constitution. So it means that it's like a military command structure where orders are given by the top general and must be strictly followed down the ranks. There is no debate or vote on the orders. We have the third K. So we have the interim or caretaker government. The day-to-day administration is run by an appointment caretaker cabinet made up of acting ministers. These positions are held exclusively by senior Taliban members. For example, ministries like education, interior, and foreign affairs exist, but the people running them were appointed by the leadership, not elected, and they implement policies based on the supreme leader's decrees. So we have here the fourth key. We have the enforcement of Sharia. The primary goal of the government is to implement its rigid interpretation of Islamic law across all sectors of society, which includes severe restrictions on women's rights, example, barring secondary and higher education for girls, strict dress codes and limits on movement and work, and a curtailment of media and political freedom. For example, when a decree is issued banning women from working for national or international non-governmental organizations or NGOs, all ministers and provincial officials must immediately enforce that specific ban, effectively removing women from this job. That's all. Thank you.
Before I proceed to the effects of globalization in German's culture, let me first introduce myself. I am Roadi Alabastro. Now let's discuss how globalization affects the German's culture. So globalization has significantly impacted German's culture by introducing international influence and blending them with traditional costumes. This mixing of culture is evident in language, cuisines, fashion, and entertainment. Here is an example. First is the language. The German language increasingly incorporates English words, especially among younger generation. The second one is cuisine. While traditional German food remains popular, international cuisines such as Italian, Turkish, and Vietnamese have become popular. The third one is the fashion. Traditional German clothing like dirndls and lederhosens are now mainly worn on special occasions, while global fashion trends like jeans and t-shirts are more commonly in everyday life. And the last one is the entertainment. So German media is influenced by international trends, and international media is widely accessible in Germany. While globalization brings diversity and new ideas, there are also concerns about the loss of traditional German culture. Preserving traditional value while adapting to globalization remains a challenge for all Germans.
And now let us know how the globalization has influenced the Afghanistan's culture. So globalization can influence Afghanistan's culture in both positive and negative ways. On one hand, it provides opportunities for cultural exchange, exposing the younger generation to global ideas, technology, and lifestyle. For example, the Afghanistan youth are increasingly active on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, where they can connect with peers from all over the world, share ideas, and learn about different cultures. This can foster creativity, open-mindedness, and connection to the outside world, especially through the internet and social media. Additionally, it can boost economic growth, bringing new goods and services, and improve educational opportunities. One example of this, the rise of international non-governmental organizations or the NGOs in Afghanistan, which often provide resources and training in fields like technology and entrepreneurship. However, these benefits may come at the cost of the Afghanistan's traditional values. The dominance of foreign language like English and global consumerism could undermine local customs, language, and arts. For instance, the increasing presence of Western brands like McDonald's and Coca-Cola in major cities has begun to shift consumer preferences away from traditional Afghanistan products and local food culture. Moreover, globalization can create a generational divide as younger people adopt more modern, globalized lifestyle, while older generation hold on to traditional values. This divide is often seen in Afghanistan cities, where younger people are more likely to embrace fashion trends, music, and technology influenced by the West. For example, the Afghanistan's youth culture has become more influenced by Western fashion and music, with young people often attending private events that reflect these trends. At the same time, older generation, particularly in rural areas, are resistant to such changes and prefer to maintain traditional practices. The influence of Western media and social media can expose Afghanistan's youth to lifestyle that may clash with a conservative Afghanistan norms. So this was evident in the aftermath of the Taliban's initial rise to power, as they banned many forms of entertainment, including TV and music, which were seen in as Western influences. So today, many young Afghanistans still struggle to navigate between traditional culture, expectation, and modern global influences, leading to identity struggles. While globalization offers benefit like improved education and communication, it also possesses challenges, including the risk of losing the country's culture's heritage and identity. Finding a balance between embracing global opportunities and preserving cultural tradition will be key for Afghanistan's future. That's all. Thank you.
So, bright morning again, everyone. So, now let's talk about how globalization impacts peace in Germany. First, we have globalization has led to significant economic growth for Germany, with trade supporting millions of well-paid jobs. Second, globalization has fostered increased international cooperation and diplomacy, which has contributed to a more peaceful and stable world. So Germany was an active participant in international organizations and agreements promoting free trade and economic cooperation. Third, Germany has played a key role in international efforts to prevent and resolve conflicts with globalizations, highlighting the need for collective action, and Germany has benefited significantly from globalization, with exports of goods and services has become one of the world's leading export nations is the Germany.
I am Joynet Balinario, and now let's talk about the peace in Afghanistan. So, after decades of continuous fighting, Afghanistan now has a fragile form of peace where the major war between the Taliban and other forces has mostly ended. The Taliban is in control of the country. So, the Taliban is a Sunni Islamist, ultra-conservative political and militant movement that currently controls Afghanistan, calling its government the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. So the current situation is often described as a fragile peace or the absence of war rather than a state of positive peace. Is it because their central goal is to establish a purely Islamic state based on their fundamentalist ideology? In practice, this has resulted in all-male government, the near total public exclusion of women and girls, including bans on secondary education, university attendance, and most employment, and the harsh enforcement of morality rules. While their rule has ended the large-scale war, it has led to a severe humanitarian crisis, widespread human rights violations, and a lack of international recognition, with the world community demanding an inclusive government and respect for human rights. So the picture shows Afghan women hold placards as they protest for the right to education, work, and freedom. The protest formed in response to Afghanistan Taliban rulers ordering a ban on university education for women. So the rule of the Taliban in Afghanistan has had a significant and overwhelmingly negative impact on the country's relationship with globalization, essentially resulting in its severe isolation and economic decline. So the global community refusal to recognize the regime primarily due to its extreme human rights abuses, particularly the systematic exclusion of women from public life and education, has led to freezing of billions in central banks' assets and a cut-off from the international financial system and development aid. This diplomatic and financial isolation, combined with the loss of half of the potential workforce, has triggered a massive economic contraction, fueling a widespread humanitarian crisis and an immigration of skilled workers, ultimately ensuring the country remains locked out of global trade, development, and cooperative efforts. That's all. Thank you.